All right. So this is an interview with Peter Hoffmann,
Hello?
who is my friend and also a homeopath, who is from the Czech Republic, or is it called Czechia or Czech Republic? Which one is
Both.
it nowadays? We have no idea what things are called in English because the Ukraine used to be the Ukraine and now it's Ukraine. So,
Yeah, Czechia, Czech Republic, both are valid. And used to be Czechoslovakia. That would be a mistake, but Czechia or Czech Republic, both are.
yeah, I don't know who's going to be watching this, but
Okay.
if it's a lot of Americans, then they have no idea what the Czech Republic was. But we're not going to get into that.
I would be happy if Americans were watching us. Uh,
Let's hope so. I mean, we're not going to get a lot of viewers, but let's hope some people do watch this.
okay, great.
All right. So Peter is a homeopath, and we're just going to talk about some general homeopathy things. And first, Peter, tell us something about yourself.
Well, first of all, thanks for inviting me
You're welcome.
uh, to this interview. And I'm always thrilled to talk about homeopathy.
Good.
So I might be long with some answers, so please stop me if I'm too long.
Okay.
But I can get excited. Yeah, I love homeopathy. I mean, homeopathy is really uh, one of the most important things in my life, if not the most important, because it changed my life completely.
Mm-hmm.
It turned it upside down, and I cannot imagine, you know, living without homeopathy.
Right.
So, well, I've been practicing homeopathy for about 15 years now. So
It's a long time.
yeah, that's enough for to know whether this is working or not, what to expect from it.
It should be.
So you kind of have some general picture of uh, what is this about.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I don't know what exactly you want to know about me, but um, I came in contact with homeopathy as a child already.
Right.
When I was small, I was sick quite often. I had
Mm-hmm.
some colds and flu quite often as a child.
Mm-hmm.
I missed a lot of school,
Right.
and so my mom took me to a homeopath, and it was very weird.
Mm-hmm.
I remember it being quite weird
Right.
because it was very different from what I had experienced with medical doctors before. This was very different in many ways. The person was quite strange, and he was asking me strange questions.
Right.
But whatever. My mom took me there, so I had to kind of obey.
Mm.
And yeah, but it was strange, and he didn't harm me in any way. I mean, you know, uh, from the doctors, medical doctors, I just remember the torture.
No.
From the examinations, everything was painful and everything was uncomfortable. But this man was just asking me questions,
Yeah.
and then he gave me some medicines, and it helped. You
I
know,
think that's how most homeopaths become homeopaths, right?
sure,
They
of
have
course,
their own health problems
sure,
and they go for treatment. So
yeah, sure, definitely. Yeah, so then actually it helped. So I went back to school, which was I wasn't excited about very much, but yeah, I
right.
had to go back, and I mean, I didn't miss very much. It was like half a year or a few months. I was just a lot of time at home. Uh,
Hmm.
I, I I was going to school at the time actually, but then I kind of forgot about homeopathy.
Hmm.
And in my 20s, I developed different health issues,
Yeah.
which were far more serious. Uh, so, and I can tell you, I tried everything. First, I tried conventional medicine, of course.
Right.
It was like 2.5 years, I think, when I was desperately trying to get some answers,
Hmm.
not only treatment, but even answers. Nobody was able to explain what's going on, what was
Right.
going on with my organism at the time.
Because they don't know. I think that's the reason.
Yeah, unfortunately, in many cases, they are unable to explain. I was actually, I mean, I don't want to kind of put down conventional medicine, but
Okay.
I remember when I was studying some medical course because I wanted to have some basic medical. I don't know how this is called in English actually, but I studied some basic medical training.
Health sciences or something.
Maybe I don't know. It may be called different in different countries, but
Right.
I think it was 1.5 years, like a basic
Hmm.
medical training, but it was not a medical college, right?
Right.
But I was surprised to learn that in practically all chronic diseases, conventional medicine says we don't know the cause,
Yeah.
we don't know why this is happening.
Exactly.
So it was quite surprising for me. But anyway, back to the topic. So I developed some complaints when I was 21, 22, something
Hmm.
years old. And so I tried conventional medicine without any success. Then I tried some healers, Chinese medicine, and some kind of strange devices, electronic devices, when you hold these electrodes and you
Right.
know,
Scientology or something.
no, no, no,
No,
no,
that's a
no.
different one.
It was some kind of. There are a few of these out
Right.
there. It's like an electronic device which kind of measures your frequencies of your
Yeah.
body, and then it can send back some frequencies which are
Mm.
supposed to be curative.
Right. But
Uh,
but none of these worked, right? None of these worked for you.
None of these worked really deep. None of these worked to a really deep degree. I tried Chinese medicine, but this one was probably. I'm not sure if the therapist was properly educated in the
Yeah,
field.
that's the other problem
Um,
with all of these. Yeah.
but finally, after years of struggle, I kind of remembered the homeopath
Right.
from childhood, and I approached him again. I went back to him.
Hmm.
He was still practicing,
Yeah.
and things started changing.
Hmm.
So it was, I had a comparison. I could compare, and there was a definite change after homeopathy. Something really started to
Right.
change.
And then you decided to learn it yourself, right? To learn
Yeah,
how.
later on, I decided to learn it because it
Yeah.
got my
So
attention, of
yeah,
course.
if we tell viewers, I mean, there are a lot of viewers probably who don't know anything about homeopathy. So if we tell viewers that you are a classical homeopath, they don't know what that means. So I mean, we can just tell the maybe there are some homeopaths watching this. You are actually a classical homeopath who
Yeah,
studied with George Ruthulkas, who is the like the main classical homeopathy uh, figurehead nowadays.
yeah. I consider myself a classical homeopath, and studying with George Vitulkas, uh, of course, I feel obliged to stick to classical homeopathy because
Right.
uh, he is a classical homeopath, and I don't want really to.
Right.
Yeah,
For this
exactly.
science.
Thanks. Yeah, to maintain the standard, and
No.
because it is important to improve actually the credit of homeopathy among
No.
general public. So yeah, I'm a classical homeopath. So what it means for someone who doesn't know,
No.
uh, there have been some new variants of homeopathy, or as we can say,
No.
which deviated from the classical approach. But the classical is, for me, there is only one homeopathy. For me, is the one which Samuel Hahnemann developed,
Mm-hmm.
and Kant and Clark and Berke and many others, many of his followers actually, uh, they just
These are guys
extended.
in the 19th century, right?
Yeah, yeah,
We have to
exactly.
add that here.
Yeah, we are talking about 19th century.
Yeah.
So they just extended the knowledge, but they built on this original uh, teachings of Hahnemann. So, and this classical homeopathy is still developing. For example, George Vitulkas has brought some new concepts, but these concepts, again, they are based on the original knowledge or
No.
original concept. So, what a classical homeopath does is he or she takes the interview into very small details. The interview with the patient is very, very extensive and
Mm-hmm.
detailed and precise, and it takes a long time. The first interview may take like 1.5 or 2 hours,
No.
so that's quite common. And that's one thing. The other thing is we only give one remedy at a time, always.
Mm-hmm.
We don't mix remedies. We don't give two or three remedies at the same time, just one remedy at a time.
Mm-hmm.
We may change the remedy after some time, but for the time being, we always stick to one remedy.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't prescribe superficially on a diagnosis, for example.
No.
We
Which is
prescribe on
like
symptom.
the allopathic diagnostic method, right? And some people do
Yeah,
practice homeopathy that way, right? Based on
yeah,
a
yeah. That's
diagnosis,
exactly.
they give a remedy.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. That also in some modern, so-called modern homeopathy variants, you can see that people prescribe on diagnosis.
No.
So
So why is it important to stick to classical homeopathy? There are people who reformed homeopathy. There are people who created like psychoanalytic methods, like Sankaran. They created classification methods. They created detox methods. There's millions and
yeah,
millions of methods,
yeah.
reform methods, which deviate from classical homeopathy. How? I mean, are we really making the claim that none of these work?
Uh, I don't think so. I mean, they sure they have some results,
Okay.
and I actually have some patients who who were treated before by other homeopaths, by other methods, by other variants. Let's call them variants.
And they do work sometimes.
Sometimes, yes, sometimes they work,
Oh.
uh, but that's just rare. It's not. I should say it's
Uh-huh.
not common. It's not. It's not. Not a lot of them get cured, but I've seen some, a few of them. But
Hmm.
most of them, there is not a deep effect. It's
Hmm.
just superficial. That's the problem.
What do we mean by deep effect, and what do we mean by superficial effect?
Well,
Sorry, it's a
no, no, no.
complicated question.
No, no, not complicated, but it takes a long time to explain. So, how can I put it in a simple way? Um, well, in homeopathy, we try to increase or to strengthen the general vitality of the organism. And actually, homeopathy is the only therapy that I know of that can do this. Maybe traditional Chinese medicine can do this too, but I don't have as much experience with it. But I believe traditional Chinese medicine can do that as well. But apart from that, homeopathy is the only one that I know that can really increase or alleviate or elevate the level of general health of the person. And
Hmm.
that's actually what the real homeopathy is about strengthening the organism as a whole, increasing general vitality of the person, and then the organism just do the rest of the work itself.
Right.
It just does, it heals itself by using its own powers. We just make the terrain, we just make uh, the the environment
Yeah.
working better.
Hmm.
And I'm afraid non-classical homeopathy approaches they just are unable to do this, and that's
Yeah.
because either they give mixtures of remedies,
Hmm.
so it means uh, there is no direct one-way stimulation of the organism,
Hmm.
but it's kind of um,
Okay, that's a good one. You need to stimulate the organism in one direction. You
yeah,
can't be pushing it
yeah,
in
different directions.
into all kinds of directions.
Yes, it won't work. It won't do the trick. Uh, the energy has to be focused in a very exact uh, uh, way, or uh, you have to target very precisely.
Right.
And actually, we are trying to match the resonance or energy of the remedy with the energy of the organism, with the regime that the organism is working at the particular time.
Hmm.
Um,
So
so
there's an energetic push. For people who don't know, homeopathy provides a big push on the energetic level.
yes, yes, and people feel it. The patients can feel this very often because most of them, after a correct remedy, they report having more energy.
Right.
That happens all the time with a correct remedy. In most cases, they have more energy. Uh, so the non-classical approaches, they just they are unable to bring deep improvement,
No.
and they usually only change symptoms of the patient. The original picture is usually far gone,
Right.
and it's difficult to treat these cases. But there is no deep cure. There is no deep cure in a sense that we have a concept which we call directions of cure.
Hmm.
So this means that the pathology should shift after our treatment. It should shift to more peripheral areas in the organism, and it should diminish in. Uh, it should get less serious. Let's
Yeah.
say easily.
Yeah.
It should get less serious, and If this doesn't happen, then it's not a deep cure.
Right. So these people who do all these weird methods, they use all these weird methods, what we
Mhm.
consider weird because it's not based on
Yeah,
classical literature.
sure.
Are they malicious? Are they, or are they just ignorant, or are they just what's going on in their mind when they're giving all these
Yeah.
weird prescriptions?
Well, I don't think they are malicious.
Right.
I think
Okay.
um, I think they just weren't so lucky, and they because it's difficult to discriminate. When you are a beginner student
Hmm.
of homeopathy, it's
Right.
difficult to discriminate between what's the correct way of or what's the, you know, what's the so-called wrong homeopathy. But
Hmm.
actually, from what I know about these non-classical methods, is that they all have something in common,
Hmm.
and that thing is simplification of the process of the
Yeah.
correction of the remedy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That's the main point. So they are kind of easier for the prescriber,
Yeah.
but the effect, you know, is not as deep. But I've seen people really cured,
Hmm.
but very few people. But I've seen such cases,
Right.
and this was probably, I mean, if we are talking about French homeopathy, for example, which is mixtures of remedies,
Yeah.
two or three or even more remedies at the same time, and they dose for a long time. They
Yeah.
keep taking the remedy for 2 3 months,
Yeah.
twice, 3 times a day,
Yeah. 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 I know.
whatever protocol there is. This is also a problem, but we can talk about this later. But uh, probably the correct remedy was in the mixture,
Hmm.
but the rest of the remedies were actually far enough to spoil the case, to spoil the action of the correct one. So
Yeah.
it was a lucky situation
Hmm.
where the person actually took the correct remedy and took some remedies which were very incorrect
Right.
among with the correct one. So yeah, it may help if the correct remedy is there,
Right.
but usually the other remedies in the mixture spoil the case or kind of block the action of the correct remedy, even if it's there, because it's not, as I was talking before, it's not the direct stimulation.
Hmm. Yeah. So these modern homeopaths, so-called modern, in
Yeah.
quotes, homeopaths, they say that we needed to reform homeopathy because in the modern world, the toxicity levels are so high and that diseases are so complex that the classical method doesn't work anymore. And we are facing such challenges that we need to reform homeopathy. And, the toxicity blocks the action of the remedy. We need to get rid of the toxicity and then maybe use classical homeopathy after that. And
Okay.
I partly agree with them about the state of the world, which is that we are exposed to extreme toxicity levels and health is deteriorating. It's never been so bad. But does it really mean that we should deviate from classical homeopathy?
Well, it's not my experience. In my experience, I mean, I agree, as you do. I agree with the first part of it. Yes, the world is in a very bad state uh, these days, and the toxicity levels are higher. And this is all true,
Yeah.
but classical homeopathy still works in spite of this.
Hmm.
So I don't think there's a need to radically reform homeopathy, but it may be, with some cases, it may be more difficult to treat, to find correct remedy. I mean, who knows? Who knows? Nobody knows everything. They may be true in a way, and maybe now you are referring to the they call them protocols,
Yeah,
detoxification protocols or something like this. Some homeopaths give all the nosodes like
yeah,
medorinum, tuberculinum, syphilinum, psorinum to one person to kind of clean
yeah.
the miasmatic um,
Layers or something.
yeah layers. So I don't know. I don't know. It's not my experience. I don't do that. Uh, and our old remedies still work these days, and we have enough of them, I think,
Mm,
because uh, we have about 3 or 4 thousand remedies. I think I don't know. I
yeah.
looked it up some time ago, but I don't remember. But of course, usually we work with a few hundreds,
Hmm.
maybe
Yeah.
not even that, maybe.
But couldn't it be the case that you have some we always get some people who are very difficult and maybe we don't succeed in the treatment. I have some I have like 10 or 10 20% of my cases I can't cure. Like I'm sure you have a certain
Yeah,
percentage
yeah,
of
yeah,
people
yeah.
you
Of
can't
course, me
cure.
too. Me
Could
too.
it be that some weird method could resolve those cases, or
Maybe,
no?
maybe. I don't know.
It's
I
a
don't know.
sarcastic question, but
No, no, no. It's a valid question. I think. Uh, I still believe that in most of these unsuccessful cases, unless there is a pathology which is really irreversible, which, of course, in homeopathy uh, can be different than in conventional medicine. What I want to say is that we can treat or cure some pathologies which in conventional medicine are considered irreversible.
no.
We can do that, that's for sure. But uh, in some cases, probably I always blame myself that I wasn't able to
Right.
find the right remedy.
Hmm.
Probably it's a matter of being able to find the correct remedy.
Okay.
Probably.
Okay.
But there may be something else. Who knows? There may
Hmm.
be. I remember George Vitulkas talking about this. That I mean, every homeopath, no one has 100% success. That's impossible. And he was talking about this that we still don't know why some of these cases, in spite of the remedy being seemingly correct, uh, we can't cure them.
Yeah.
Of course, there are some
Obstacles.
obstacles of cure, and you know, this is another topic. But some cases, in spite of having no real obstacles, in spite of taking seemingly correct remedy,
Hmm.
I've had patients. I have had patients who even didn't react to almost any remedy or to
Yeah.
none of the remedies, and the symptoms actually fit quite well, and there was no reaction so whatsoever. So I really I really don't know why. What is the
Yeah. We
culprit?
all get those patients.
Yeah,
We know that
yeah,
those there's some patients like that. Absolutely.
yeah. Maybe some higher powers, something which we cannot influence, something
Yeah.
stronger than us.
Well,
I don't know.
karmic influence or something. Right.
Might be, might be.
Okay. So, if for the people who don't know anything about homeopathy,
Yeah.
how can they find a good practitioner, like somebody who does scientific, correct homeopathy and not all nonsense?
Well, that's difficult.
That's difficult, right?
And then now it may sound that I consider myself one of the good ones. I mean, I
Yeah,
don't
me
want
too.
to put it like that, but uh, it's difficult. It's the same as the beginner student of homeopathy. How to distinguish which school is good and which
Hmm.
one is not so good.
Hmm.
It's the same. I mean, perhaps references.
Hmm.
Someone who has good references. Uh, of course, I would recommend somebody who is a classical homeopath,
Right.
only classical homeopathy. This is what I would recommend. And the person, of course, should have some proper education in the field,
Hmm.
should be able to prove it if asked.
Yeah.
And I think a good homeopath should be able to, uh, of course, as I mentioned before, taking the interview properly, into detail, precisely, but should be able to establish. I'm sorry for that.
No
Phone.
worries.
Which of my phone?
Don't worry about it.
Uh, so a good homeopath should be able to establish at least some kind of basic prognosis.
Hmm.
Should be able to estimate what should probably happen after the remedy, and should be able to explain, for example, at a follow-up, should be able to explain what is going on
Hmm.
in this particular case and what to expect in the future. And we can do that because of the knowledge of the principles we have.
Hmm.
Uh, we can do that, and if it really happens, then the person trusts you better because he knows or she knows that you know what you are doing,
Hmm.
and then maybe they will recommend you to somebody else. And most patients I have, they came to me by reference, word of mouth.
No.
That's most of them.
Right. And he, of course, as we said, the homeopath needs to give one remedy, right?
Yeah, yeah, a classical homeopath, as I mentioned.
And
Yes, yes.
the prescription needs to be based on the totality of symptoms.
Yeah, yeah, not on a diagnosis, definitely. If you and this happens, of course, in my country, for example, a person comes to a pharmacy. There is a pharmacist who was trained in French homeopathy,
Hmm.
and the person says, "I have a cough
Hmm.
and I have a fever."
Right.
Maybe they will ask one or two questions, but that's
Hmm.
it. In five
Yeah.
minutes, they are done, and here is a remedy. So that's not a classical approach. Even with an acute case, for me, it takes at least 15-20 minutes to take an acute case properly.
Right.
So
Right.
going into detail is really important.
Acute cases can be very difficult sometimes as
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
They can be
sometimes.
very complicated.
In a way, some of them can be difficult to manage, but on the other hand, usually there are quite strong symptoms which are readable
Hmm.
very, very easily. So this is an advantage. Symptoms are kind of screaming
Yeah.
loud.
Yeah. Yeah.
So uh, in this way, it might be a bit easier to find a remedy.
Hmm.
But yeah, they may be difficult to manage. There are relapses, and you may need more than one remedy to finish the cure of an
Right.
acute. It happens, yes.
Right. 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 Okay. So I wanted to talk about something today, which might be a strange topic for you,
Really? Okay.
which is, well, I don't know, maybe on the internet, there's a huge conspiracy theory, um, like audience, and
Yeah.
um, there are all kinds of conspiracy theories spreading on the internet. And one of them is the debate between germ theory and terrain theory.
Well, are these really conspiracy theories?
Well,
I think these are kind of valid theories.
okay, this is you think it's a valid debate, germ theory versus
Yeah,
terrain
yeah,
theory?
just two different camps.
Uh-huh.
Uh, for me, I'm definitely an advocate of the terrain theory.
Right.
Um, I don't know if the viewers know what we mean by that, but uh, I
Well,
mean,
I think as homeopaths, our opinion is a little different from the terrain theory people.
yeah, from the original theory,
Uh,
yes, definitely.
Nowadays, of course, they say that the state of the body is the most important thing, and infection doesn't actually happen via microorganisms, um, because, for example, when people have a cold, they're next to each other and the bodies are signaling to each other um, to go through a detox process. So it's like a
Mm,
regenerative process. And if we're close to someone who's going through that process, we tend to do it ourselves. And so the
mm,
acute disease is not caused by the transmission of germs. That's kind of
mm.
what
Okay,
terrain theory people are saying.
okay.
In homeopathy, I don't know. Traditionally, I think we're a bit closer to germ theory in that most homeopaths say that germs do cause disease like that.
Oh yeah, okay, okay. That's what you mean. Uh, well, I'm not familiar very much with the theory we're talking about. That I do believe that viruses, bacteria, and fungi, and these microorganisms really exist. I do believe that,
Hmm.
and uh, uh, so maybe I'm an advocate of both theories, but I believe that it's much more important to have your immune system in a good condition.
Hmm.
That's really crucial. Um, I think it's a better way. That's what we try to do in homeopathy. Instead of trying to kill the germs,
Hmm. Hmm.
we try to
Exactly.
stimulate, to strengthen the immune system, to
Exactly.
strengthen the whole vitality. We also have something which we call defense mechanism, which is kind of super imposed to to the immune system, superior to the immune system. But uh, actually, the stronger the organism,
Yeah.
the better it can cope with the infections.
So
And
maybe it doesn't really matter whether it's the germs that are causing disease or something else.
yeah,
We
that's the
we
point.
as homeopaths focus
Yeah,
on strengthening the immune system,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. That's a
And
good point actually, because we, as a homeopath, what we need for curing someone is symptoms,
mhm,
and actually, it does not matter what caused the symptoms.
right,
I
right,
mean, it can be helpful to know the pathology, what's going on in the organism. We have some remedies which have some kind of particular pathology in their picture. Yeah, that's useful. But we can. That's one of the biggest advantages of homeopathy. We can start treatment when we have symptoms,
yeah.
even if we don't know the
So
diagnosis.
basically, it's not an important question for us unless
In
you're
a way,
very
no, no,
interested
not
in
really.
this.
Yeah, not really.
But
Not,
like even if it germs don't cause disease, even if that's true, it's still true that the healthier the body is, the less likely it's going to go through that influenza or cold or whatever you want to call it. Um, because we know that, right? As homeopaths, we
yeah,
know
yeah,
that
sure,
the healthier a person is,
sure.
the less likely they're going to go through that,
Yeah,
no matter what the mechanism behind that is.
yeah,
So it's always it doesn't really matter. We have to strengthen the immune system, despite or whatever the case may be. as to the workings behind the scenes, right? So,
Yeah, sure. And again, homeopathy, I think, is one of the very few disciplines do that can really strengthen the immune system deeply
hmm
as a whole.
hmm
Conventional medicine, they have some immunostimulants, some kind of drugs which kind of stimulate immune system, but it's usually superficial and temporary.
right.
From my experience, and I have patients who are treated by these immunostimulants, and the effect was always short, rather short and superficial, and of course because it just it just provokes the immune system to work uh, uh, more aggressively
hmm
for some time.
hmm
But if there is no energy for that, if the organism doesn't have the capacity for that,
hmm
it doesn't it doesn't last. The effect will not last very long. Uh,
hmm
it's not a deep cure,
hmm
you know.
And also, well, yeah, that's true. That's true. And but the also there's another reason why we might consider infectious diseases to not be infectious diseases in homeopathy,
Okay.
which is that we say that the suppression of acute disease causes chronic disease. So if we reverse that, doesn't that mean that acute disease is actually a regenerative process of the body? And if we consider it to be, then we're less likely. We're just moving away from the germ theory kind of model, aren't we?
Well, in my mind, no,
Oh,
I
okay,
don't see it like that. But I can imagine someone can have a different point of view.
right.
Uh, but it's a matter of the point of view. From the way I look at it, is
hmm
that yes, acute disease, or let's say acute symptoms,
hmm
are uh, tools or weapons of the organism
Yeah.
to regenerate, or for regeneration of the organism. It's a regenerative process,
hmm
or an expression of this process, maybe. Uh, and So whatever caused this, the organism has a problem, and is producing some kind of reactions, symptoms, processes to actually cope with the situation.
hmm
Sometimes it remains in this condition for a long time because it doesn't have the capacity to really solve the problem by these symptoms.
hmm
So yeah, in a way, it is a regeneration process.
hmm
But I still believe that uh, some of these infections are caused by bugs, by germs, and some of the germs actually are very, very aggressive and virulent.
hmm
So even if you have a very strong immune system, you will get infected. That's that's
Okay.
that's a fact. That's true, and that of course any immunologist would explain how it works with viruses, with bacteria. They need to replicate, they change, they mutate in order to survive. So that's why uh, I mean, anyone who is not sick, who is never sick for 10, 20 years, for us, for homeopaths, there is a big, you know,
Red
um,
flag.
yeah, red flag. It's not normal. It's not natural. So usually these people are very sick, and it's not because their immune system is working very well, but it's actually the opposite. These people have, for sure, these people have some chronic complaints. That's a certainty, or some psychological problems,
Hmm.
maybe psychological pathology. But it's normal to get sick, once every 2 years, once a year. That's the healthiest people get sick once every 2 3 years, uh, and it's still fine if you are sick once or twice a year. It's still good if you have high fevers. Sometimes it's
Hmm.
still very very good,
Hmm.
and it's because bacteria viruses need to replicate, and the organism doesn't have antibodies for the new variants, for the new, you know, uh, for the new type of virus mutated. So it has to react. So I think it's normal. That's how I see these things.
Okay. Well, I think we're not never going to know the final answers, the real truth behind the whole thing. We're just talking about models and which ones might be true, which ones might not. There's a lot of gray area in between. Um, but what we can say is that we can definitely say that the world is moving towards the allopathic health model, or it's kind of fixated on that. And it's kind of homeopathy is kind of being pushed out of public discourse because of this, I think, because it might interfere with that. I don't know if you think that's true or not, but I think there's like a tendency to for the allopathic model to just rule over everything right now.
Yeah, it has
And
always been
I don't
like
know
this.
if you agree with that, but if you do, then why do you think that's or happening, or what's going on there?
It has always been like this. Uh, I would encourage the viewers to read. Um, Actually, I have it somewhere here. This book,
Hmm.
Organon of Medicine,
Right.
from Samuel Hahnemann, and in his times, it was already like this, and the conventional medicine was was very different than from where it is now. What they used mercury, and they used poisons to treat people, and they killed a lot of them actually.
Hmm.
And so already at Hahnemann's times, it's well known that he had much better results in epidemics, and he and his colleagues with homeopathy, they had much better results. Much less people died uh, with homeopathic treatment than with conventional treatment in the epidemics of cholera and scarlet fever and these epidemics, uh, mumps, and you know different epidemics. So uh, so already at that time, the so-called conventional medicine considered itself superior, and they were criticizing homeopathy as anything new. This is
Hmm.
always, it's kind of a nature of human beings.
Right.
Anything new is being despised. And,
But then there was a time when homeopathy became really widespread. You know?
yeah, 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 of course, because it was working, and compared to you know allopathic medicine at that time, it must have had fantastic, you know much better results, fantastic success. So yeah, of course. For example, Hahnemann died in France, in Paris. So, and he lived there, I think, for 8 years only
Hmm.
before he died, and he left, you know a huge legacy
Hmm.
there. And now Poiron, one of the leading manufacturers of the remedies, is from France. So,
Hmm.
and he treated a lot of famous people there, a lot of different celebrities. And so it spread it really, really fast.
Hmm.
Uh, but back to your question.
Yeah, why is allopathy? Why has allopathy taken over the world?
Yeah. So I think the narrative or the approach of allopaths or conventional doctors has remained the same all these years.
Hmm.
And they kind of consider themselves superficial because maybe because of some technological advance, because
Hmm.
of chemical drugs, which are quite sophisticated. They consider themselves um, superior, uh,
No.
and uh, and they think that, or they say that their kind of treatment is the only scientific. But there have been quite a few, instances where this simply, um,
It's not the case.
is not the case. And there are books about this written, that failures and errors of allopathic medicine. I don't know exactly the names of these books, but there have been a few books where, for example, they claimed this drug is completely safe. I mean, we don't have to go very far in the past,
No.
actually, but I don't want to be specific. But they
No.
claim these drugs are completely safe, and after 10 years, 15 years, it turns out that, it was actually very toxic, causing cancer, whatever.
Well.
So it's not as scientific as they claim, I think.
Hmm.
And they say evidence based. Well, it's difficult for me because allopathic medicine cannot cure most of the chronic diseases. That's true. They cannot cure a person with hypothyroid, with high blood pressure, with ulcerative colitis,
No.
with depression, with anxieties. Maybe with anxieties, some cases can be cured with allopathy.
Well, they
But
can put you on drugs and then
yeah, they put
forever, and
in
then
drugs.
you can suppress the symptoms.
Without the drugs, you are lost,
No.
or you die, or the people can die actually. So it's not, for me, this is not a cure.
No.
This is some kind of treatment, a compromise, but they cannot really cure.
So what happened? Allopathy managed to convince people that this is science. This is scientific.
Well, it is scientific, but not 100%.
Hmm.
And nothing can be 100%, I think. The thing is that uh, the experts don't have one opinion. They differ in their opinions.
No.
Even they all are experts, but their opinions differ, and that's normal, and that's human. That's fine.
Hmm.
But if we do the same, then we are, charlatans, and it's difficult. So,
Right. Right. Right.
but I don't believe, as you mentioned, that. I mean, I believe in homeopathy. I believe that is not less and less sought after.
Hmm.
I think. Well, first of all, I don't think that fewer and fewer people are willing to try homeopathy. Actually, I see the opposite. I
Oh.
think it's the opposite.
Okay.
Uh, uh, and this is mainly because the population is getting sicker and sicker in general.
Hmm. Hmm.
And despite of the, you know, um, technological advance of conventional medicine and sophisticated drugs, more and more sophisticated, still uh, chronic diseases are spreading more and more. Not only chronic diseases, but mainly chronic diseases, psychological problems, physical diseases are spreading more and more, and in younger and younger people, in children. And I think this is alarming. So, in spite of all this technological advance of modern medicine, people are getting sicker and sicker. They
Hmm.
live longer, that's true, but sometimes it is at a high cost, really, or it's not a quality life. But yeah, sometimes they can keep them alive longer, or we can keep them alive longer. But homeopathy can do the same. But and also, I'm afraid that conventional medicine is a little bit overloaded. I don't know what's the situation in your country or other countries, but in my country, definitely the system is kind of overloaded. Full waiting rooms, long appointment times. You know, doctors are all overloaded, underpaid. They have to work extra hours. So the situation is really difficult, and
And you're
it's getting
saying
more
that
and more difficult.
people are turning towards homeopathy? Is that
Yeah,
your
that's
that
what I
really your
want to say. That
experience? Because
yeah,
it's
that's
I don't see that happening. But if if you
well, there is a quite a big community of people these days who, and it's spreading, who are into more natural way of living,
hmm
and people are realizing more and more. They are realizing that it's important to be self-sufficient, to grow your own food,
hmm
to be more careful towards the nature, and so there is quite. I mean, I think a growing group of people, and these people definitely turn into alternative
well, they
medicine.
turn to alternatives, but I see people being drawn towards other modalities instead of homeopathy. Like
What I don't like is when we are being put into the same category,
no,
which sometimes happens.
no,
Homeopathy is very different. It's a science. It's a medicine. Uh, we just treat people. It's a hard work. We select remedies for people and we give them the remedies, and that's it. We don't use any other means to treat.
no.
We just use the remedies. The only difference, or there are many differences from conventional medicine, but it's much more gentle, and in some conditions, it's more effective than conventional medicines. And it's uh, it's cheap. I mean, remedies are cheap, definitely. Homeopathic remedies, and for the patient, it's very easy. It has very little side effects, and if there are side effects for us, they are actually desired side effects, not undesired.
Yeah, the
Um,
healing crisis.
yeah, for example, initial aggravation after a remedy. This also happens with other, like Chinese medicine or other holistic, um,
Methods.
yeah, alternative treatments which treat the person as a whole. But you are right that homeopathy is being despised more and more by the authorities, or let's say scientific community.
I think so.
Uh, Actually, do you remember the Australian meta-analysis?
I didn't get into that too much.
It was in the media. It was like 7 8 years ago, maybe.
hmm
Actually, it was published twice, and the first one came out positive for homeopathy. So
Right.
they withdrawn this one, withdrew,
hmm
they withdrew this one, and then they published. I think 2 years later, they published the one that really uh, destroyed homeopathy. That it doesn't work at all. We don't have any evidence, you
hmm
know. And we should say that there are quite a few good studies, even double-blinded studies, and so this Australian meta-analysis have some very very serious flaws. And,
Mm-hmm.
you can watch videos of Rachel Roberts.
Mm-hmm.
Miss Rachel Roberts is she's a, chief executive of the Homeopathic Research Institute
Mm-hmm.
in the Faculty of Homeopathy in London, and she analyzes this meta-analysis. She explains into detail why this is a totally fraudulent analysis,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a scandalous act against
Mm-hmm.
homeopathy,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously it was designed to despise homeopathy, to discredit homeopathy, but it has very serious scientific flaws. It's not valid from the scientific point of view at all. Just look up these videos of Rachel Roberts, and she knows what she's talking about, and she defends homeopathy very well. She's doing a great job,
Mm-hmm.
and there have been a lot of studies which confirm effectiveness of homeopathy. Uh,
Okay.
I even have a list of them. I collect them actually. So, but the problem with double-blinded studies is also that they are designed uh, because conventional medicine designed them, or science, conventional medicine science designed them, but they ignore some basic homeopathic rules. For example, initial aggravation
Yeah.
or
And individualization.
individual. Yes, exactly. So, but in spite of that, there are some good double-blinded studies. In spite of this, but
Mm-hmm.
uh, for example, I was. This is not a double-blinded study, but I was involved in a study for treatment of one epidemic disease, which was here like 4 years ago, and
Mm-hmm.
it kind of proves effectiveness of homeopathy
Right.
for this. So there are quite a few out there, but the authorities just ignore them.
All right. So there's a conscious effort to suppress homeopathy by the scientific community and maybe even political leaders.
I hate to say that, but it seems like there is a conscious effort. Yes,
Hmm.
yes, there is.
And they're not doing it to other alternative medicine. Like they're not suppressing reflexology, or they're not suppressing.
Not as much, yes, not as
Like
much
that.
as homeopathy. And actually, uh, there has been some advance in the research of how homeopathic remedies work. Actually, recently I read a study uh, about that they found. I think it was an Indian researcher,
Hmm.
they- or researchers, group of researchers. They found actually nanoparticles of the substance in homeopathic remedies,
Okay.
of the substances, arsenic, album, or different other remedies. They found actual nanoparticles in the actual homeopathic remedies. So
Mhm.
after all, or our theory of homeopathy being energetic medicine may actually in the future be explained. It may become false, and it may be explained by mere physical,
Really?
physical processes, just
Really?
nanoparticles,
Oh.
and the organism reacts to them the same as it reacts uh, to an allergen. If you are allergic to something,
Hmm.
you react to the smallest amount.
Hmm.
So
Well.
this may be an explanation, but there are many different theories of how homeopathic
Mm.
remedies can work. This is the main point. This is the main problem. And once this is explained, which I believe it will happen one day, when this is explained, then scientific community should
Okay.
start taking us seriously.
Well, actually, personally, I think that I commend people who are trying to convince the scientific community or trying to integrate homeopathy and trying to, you know,
Yeah.
do all these things. But personally, I think it's a lost cause. So I'm not like a huge advocate of trying to make official science accept homeopathy because there is a conscious effort,
Yes, 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 of
to
course.
discredit it. So unless that stops, they stop doing that. I wouldn't personally, spend all my time trying to prove homeopathy with physics and all that. But I do see it as a good thing when people are trying to do that. Or
Yeah, of course, of course. It's necessary to do. And of course there is no big money in homeopathy research, of course,
Mhm.
because there is no big business.
No,
Drug business is not in homeopathy really. I mean, there is, but very few companies make homeopathic remedies. And but I would love to cooperate more with the medical community. I would love to, to lead a dialogue with science and medical community.
hmm
Uh, and even some doctors, you know what I can tell you is I have met a few doctors in my life, either uh, concerning my own health problems or uh, regarding the treatment of my patients. Or I have some friends who are medical doctors. I have some students in my school who are medical doctors. And I can say that the best medical doctors, uh, or not all of them, but a lot of really good ones and mm, really well educated and the capacities in their field, they are very much afraid, not afraid, they are very much aware of the limitations of conventional medicine. And a lot of them say, okay, we know that these are limitations.
is
So
there
yeah.
anything else you would like to say?
Well, we should stay positive, definitely. Uh, and we should believe that homeopathy will just grow and grow, and the knowledge of homeopathy and what it can do
Hmm.
will spread more and more.
Right.
And the main work we have to do is we have to treat our patients, you know, as well as we can.
Hmm.
We should try, our best to do our best to treat them, and then it will spread more and more because word of mouth, as I mentioned.
Right. The results will speak for themselves, is what you're
Yeah,
saying.
sure. That's it. That's what we can do and what we do on a daily basis. So just keep doing this, and I'm positive about it because, as I said, in spite of the advance, still uh, people are getting sicker and sicker in
Yeah.
general. So I think there is still a place for homeopathy in this world.
You might think that people get disillusioned with allopathy if they get sicker and sicker, but that's not always the case. They just keep going back to the doctors,
Some of them, yeah, some of them, but it was my case of many people
right?
who tried to find solution with conventional medicine and they didn't succeed.
Hmm.
Uh, well, obviously they start looking somewhere else. That's natural.
Some people do. Some people,
Some, of course,
maybe,
some,
maybe a lot of people do, but not.
yeah, some come into terms with it. Some just they accept their pathology, but I was never like this. I always believed there must be a different way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I never accepted that I would remain sick for the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
It was
Well,
unacceptable for me.
okay. I think so. We've been going for an hour and a half, so maybe we can land the plane.
Yeah, of course, of course.
And thank you, everyone, for listening. And if you would like to do a homeopathic consultation with either of us, you can get in touch, right?
Yeah, sure, of course. I'm available. Of course. I'm here.
So thank you for listening and or watching, and take care.
Thanks very much. Thanks for